And of course we can't very well blame Israel, because we are Israel, who wants to be holy. The very word has fallen into disrepute. Holier than thou, holy Joe, holy mess. And saint comes to mean plaster saint, somebody of such stifling moral perfection that if we happened to cross the path of such a person, we'd run screaming in the other direction. We're such children, you and I, the way we do such terrible things with such wonderful words. We're such babes in the woods, the way we keep getting so lost in the woods. And yet, we have our moments. Every once in a while, I think, we actually long to be what out of darkness and mystery we're called to be. When we hunger for holiness, even so, even if we never use the word. There come moments, I think, even in the midst of all our cynicism and worldliness and childishness, maybe especially then, when there's something about the saints of the earth that bowls us over a little bit. I mean real saints. I mean saints as men and women who are made not out of plaster and platitude and moral perfection, but out of human flesh in all its richness and quirkiness, for the simple reason that there's nothing else around except human flesh to make saints out of. I mean saints as human beings who have their rough edges and their blind spots like everybody else, but whose lives are transparent to something so extraordinary that every once in a while it stops even you and me dead in our tracks. I remember going to see the movie Gandhi when it first came out, as many of you must have also, for instance. We were the usual kind of noisy, restless Saturday night crowd as we sat there waiting for the lights to dim with our popcorn and soda pop. Girlfriends and boyfriends, our legs draped over the backs of the empty seats. But by the time the movie came to a close, with the flames of Gandhi's funeral pyre filling the entire screen, there wasn't a sound or a movement in that whole enormous theater. And we filed out of there, teenagers and senior citizens, blacks and whites, swingers and squares, in as deep and telling a silence as I've ever been part of, or that's ever been part of me. Peter, in his letter, wrote, "You have tasted of the kindness of the Lord," and we tasted it in some fashion in that theater. In the life of that little bandy-legged, bespectacled man with his spinning wheel and his bare feet, and whatever he had in the way of selfless passion for peace and passionate opposition to every form of violence, we all of us tasted something that at least for a few moments that Saturday night made every other kind of life seem empty. Something that at least for the moment I think every last one of us longed for in a way that in a far country you long for home. A holy nation. Can a nation be holy? Can a nation be holy? It's hard to imagine it. Some part of a nation, maybe, some element of a nation, some remnant or root, a shoot coming forth in the stump of Jesse, as Isaiah put it, that with righteousness shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. In the 18th century, men and women who founded this nation dreamed just such a high and holy dream for us too, and gave their first settlements over here in my part of the country, to the east of here, names to match their high and holy dreams. New Haven, New Hope, they call those old towns. Names that almost bring tears to your eyes if you listen to what they are saying, or once said, Providence, Concord, Salem, which is Shalom, the peace of God. Dreams like that die hard and please God, there's still some echo of them in the air around us, but the way things have turned out, the meek of the earth are scared stiff at the power we have as a nation to blow the earth to smithereens 100 times over, and at our failure year after year to work out with our enemies a way of limiting that ghastly power. And the nation that once dreamed of being a new hope and a new haven for the world has become instead one of the two great bullies of the world who blunder and bluster their way to God knows what. And maybe that's the way it inevitably is with all nations. They're so huge and complex. By definition, as nations, they're so exclusively concerned with their own self-interest, conceived in the narrowest terms, that they have no eye for holiness of all things, no ear to hear the great command to be saints, no heart to break as nations at the thought of what the world could be, the friends we could be to each other as nations, the common problems we could help each other solve, all the human anguish we might join together to heal. Well, you and I are the eyes, and you and I are the ears, and you and I are the heart. It's to us that the old saint's letter is addressed. So put away all guile and insincerity and envy and all slander, he says. No shofar sounds or has to sound. It's as quiet as the scratching of a pen, as familiar as the sight of our own faces in the mirror. We've always known what was wrong with us. The malice in us, even at our most civilized, the way we focus on the worst in the people we know and then rejoice when the disasters overtake them that we believe they so richly deserve. Our insincerity, our phoniness, the masks we do our real business behind, the envy, the way other people's luck can sting like wasps, and all slander, all the ways we have of putting each other down, making such caricatures of each other that we treat each other like caricatures, even when we love each other. All the infantile nonsense and nastiness, put it away, Peter says. Before nations can be holy, you and I must be holy. Grow up to salvation for Christ's sake. Grow up. Grow up. People at my stage of the game, 60 come July, for us, isn't it a little bit too late? Young people, for you, isn't it a little bit too early? I don't think so.